Could the Dallas Cowboys trade back from pick number 26 in round one? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, how you doing today, sir?
Doing well. I'm excited. We're at 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks from today. So we're getting there. We're grinding through these, trying to do mock drafts, trying to get through players. So we got a fun one today. I think. Hopefully, we're gonna get through some fun stuff.
Yeah, I actually was playing around with the Pro Football Focus mock draft simulator today, doing some trade downs, and I thought, you know what, we haven't done one of these yet on the podcast, so we should explore it. So before we even get to the simulator, I want to ask you, how likely do you think it is that the Cowboys could trade down in round one?
That's tough, right? Because that involves the odds of finding a partner and getting the compensation right. I imagine that the Cowboys have explored many of avenues for trading back. Talked to a couple different teams, seeing feelers on, well, if this person falls, would you be interested in trading? I imagine the scenario would be for something like, a Will Levis falls or an offensive tackle that someone likes falls, right? And then a team's willing to make a small jump up, maybe just in the first round, like from the bottom to 26, or maybe just at the top of the second round to come up to 26 to kind of secure a guy that they want.
Just quickly, I'd say the one thing you have to look at is the teams that are directly behind Dallas and what those teams kind of need in the draft. It's Buffalo, Cincinnati, the Saints, Eagles, Chiefs. I think all those teams could use either offensive tackle help or cornerback help. And those are two positions that teams will trade up to get. So I think in that way, this does play out nicely.
Yeah, quarterback's a little bit tougher. Like we said, there's a great chance that those guys are taken, and even Levis is someone that, I probably wouldn't trade up for. But you're right, offensive tackle and corner stretch, and that's probably a position that is going to have a run going at the bottom of the first round. So if you want to secure the guy you like, or at least the last guy in that group of that top tier, you're probably going to need to trade up to go get him.
I will also say I've been just this time of year, I try to read like what the other teams need a lot. And just from reading a lot of different sites, it seems like the Bills, the Saints, and the Chiefs are all really eyeing like a wide receiver at the end of round one. And they're hoping like a Jordan Addison were to fall to them or a Zay Flowers. And that's where I could see, a team, let's say like Pittsburgh, that maybe could use another receiver, or the Colts or the Texans, who all have early second-round picks, being like, you know what? We don't want there to be three receivers that go ahead of us right now, right before we pick. Let's just move up a couple spots and go grab the guys. So I do think there's going to be some potential trade possibilities available for the Cowboys.
And then on the other side, as we've discussed before, the trade back is very appealing for the Cowboys, not only because you potentially get another pick, obviously the compensation part of it, but for the Cowboys, that, a little bit further back is probably right where the best value for what their needs is met, right? Because then like if you take like a Steve Avila at the top of the second round or at the bottom of the first round, like that is a lot more appealing than taking him at 26. Not that I wouldn't take him at 26, but man, Steve Avila plus a third round pick, that feels like a home run.
Well, we should also mention just Dallas's draft capital in general, right?
Yeah.
Like they've now traded 3 day 3 picks for veteran players. Jonathan Hankins during the season, a 5th rounder for Brandon Cooks, and then another pick for Stephon Gilmore. We're used to the Cowboys having 10, 11 picks in a draft. They only have 7 right now. In fact, they only have 4 in the top 165 picks. I got to believe the Cowboys would love to get another top 150 pick in this draft.
I completely agree. I mean, just by the way that they team build, obviously they rely on these picks to be the lifeblood of this team. And it's not always easy to trade them away. Obviously, they got a great return for these guys, but I guarantee you that front office is looking to kind of recomp those picks that they had to trade away.
All right, so we're gonna execute a mock draft here where we try to trade down. Landon, you and I kind of talked about this pre-show, but there is a certain point where I think trading down too far doesn't make sense for the Cowboys, right? Yeah. I think if you're going from 26 to 49 or 52, that's probably just too far. I think the sweet spot is to move somewhere between picks, 32 to 38, maybe 39 in that range.
I think 40 is honestly right where my line of kind of demarcation of that's too far for me, because I think the guys you want that you feel confident that you can get the guys that you're looking to target when you trade back in that, 30 to 40 range. Like that's where you feel confident that the trade back is going to be worth it because you're still going to get the guy that you want.
Well, even trading back from 26 to 14, you're going to have 14 guys off the board at that point. Like, it's basically a whole half a round of a draft. So you better feel confident that there's going to be at least a few guys available to you there that you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
So I even then, I think that's a little bit of a stretch. But
yeah.
Landon, let's go ahead and do this mock draft simulator next. This episode is brought to you by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious snack, but you don't want all of the sugar and the calories, then you need to try the absolute best protein bar ever. I can't even tell you how amazing it is. If you don't want to compromise in taste, but you want to eat something just a little bit healthier, Built Bar is there for you. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, first of all, they're covered in 100% real dark chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in so many unbelievably great flavors, including churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream. I just ate the cookie dough one for lunch today. Just absolutely fantastic. Not sure how Built does it because it tastes like a candy bar, but only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, but with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't even need to wait to get a box. We've been telling you for years to go to built.com and order your boxes there, which you still can do. You can get some of the special flavors on the site, but now you can go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club to get some pretty awesome flavors. That's right. Head to your Walmart, go to your pharmacy section, pick up a 4-bar box of the cookies and cream, the double chocolate bar, or the coconut puffs. Or if you live close to a Sam's Club, like I do, go grab that 13-bar box of some of the hit flavors, including brownie batter puff or churro puff. You can thank us later. All right, Landon, it's time. We preloaded this mock draft via Pro Football Focus. We've got the draft right here. The Cowboys on the clock at 26. The players available: Dalton Kincaid, Brian Branch, Will McDonald. We know the Cowboys have some interest in.
Yep.
But I think the name here is Zay Flowers, right?
Yep.
I think that's the guy that could potentially attract teams to come up and give you something to get him. And I think Dallas would just potentially take him anyways. But we've got a trade offer here from the Steelers. Pick 32, first pick in the second round, and pick 80 for pick 26. Is that interesting to you?
Yeah, I think it is. In this case, you could probably haggle a little bit more and try to get a little bit more out of them for this. Maybe like a swap of picks later on. But for this sake, I think it's probably you're looking at 80 and then maybe some other picks, which we're not going to do anyways down the road. So I think that's pretty close in value, and you can haggle on some other picks.
And the appeal to grabbing that 80 is I think that's a spot where you could land a running back, right? Absolutely. Or that's where you take one of the cornerback prospects that you really like, or maybe you grab a receiver that falls there. I just think that pick 80 is going to be pretty valuable in trying to get what you need to get out of this draft.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a good trade.
All right, so let's go ahead and offer the trade. Pittsburgh accepts it. We're moving on with the draft. They take Brian Branch, a safety from Alabama. Off the board after that is Cam Smith, Dalton Kincaid, Osiris Torrance, Zay Flowers. Oh, up to Philadelphia. Hate that.
I mean, no matter who the Eagles pick, I'm not going to be happy about it. So it's fine.
And then Mozzie Smith, the defensive tackle, off the board at 31. So Cowboys on the clock, starting Friday night. Here are the list of names still available. We've got Will McDonald, the edge rusher from Iowa State. We've got Emmanuel Forbes, who we talked about on yesterday's show. Josh Downs, a wide receiver we know the Cowboys have had interest in. Steve Avila, our guard from TCU, still available. This one's interesting. Jamar Gibbs from Alabama, running back, still available. If you want to take a running back there, Drew Sanders still available. I'm trying to scroll down. Darnell Washington still available. What appeals to you?
So in this particular situation, I feel like we should have a conversation about Will McDonald versus Gibbs. And then I think we should have a separate conversation about whether we should trade up from 58. Because
you like a lot of those names?
I'd like to get Steve Avila if we're doing this. Because and I'm nervous that he won't get to 58. Right?
No, probably not. And I don't know if Dallas would chance it either. I think the appeal to doing a trade like this is you move down, you pick up a day 2 pick, and we take the guard that we were potentially going to take at 26 anyways.
That's my going into this. That was my plan here as we discussed. However, you get here and Will McDonald and Gibbs are both available, and you wonder, could I use some of the maybe my 90 pick to get up to from 58 to ahead of I can't remember who it is, but I think that there's 2 or 3 teams in here that are going to potentially be targeting a guard. So, yeah. So I guess that's my question. Would you rather, do
you want to keep it realistic? Because I kind of don't get the sense that Dallas would probably do two moves here. I think if they're trading down from round 1, it's with the idea that we just want more picks, more shots at the dartboard.
So if that's the case, to me, I think you take Steve Avila here, right? No. Or what do you think? I think that's the safe move, and then see who lands at 50.
Because we've been talking about him as an option at 26 anyways. You move down, you get your starting left guard and hopefully a 4, 5, 6 year starter for you, and then you just see how the rest of the board falls on day 2.
I will argue though that 58 has been a total bust as far as
it's been a wasteland
who you want to pick when you get there. So I do feel like if it was me, I would explore the option to trade up.
100% agree. Yes.
But I don't know if the Cowboys necessarily are going to do that,
because I think you could go from 58 to 43 and get either.
I mean, you could get a ton of these really appealing guys. Like, honestly, you could probably go to 43 and get a Vila. So you could take Gibbs or McDonald or Sam Laporta or Tommy if you wanted. Yeah.
But at the same time, because I agree with you, 100% agree with you. They might only see one starting guard in this class.
That's true.
And it's like, hey, we accomplished the goal that we wanted to accomplish. We traded down. Our guy is still there. Let's not overthink this too much.
And the way that the draft has fallen a little bit, I mean, there's probably going to be a better than normal option at 58 just based on who's currently there, right? So it's probably worth the risk. To play it safe, I think, which is taking Avila.
All right, so let's take Steve Avila. Again, I still think if you had to ask me today, who's the most likely pick for the Cowboys at number 26, 2 weeks away from the draft, I think I would say Steve Avila. But I think this is also very realistic because teams probably aren't going to draft a guard behind you. You get them and you pick up another pick to use on a running back.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair.
All right. So we're here at pick 58. We've got some interesting names. Let's go through some positions. At running back, we've got our guy, Zach Charbonnet from UCLA. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes 58 is maybe a little bit rich for him, but maybe it doesn't feel like as big of a deal with 2 other picks coming in the 3rd round, right?
I think honestly, I would not pick running back here because I do think with 80, you've got such a, it's going to be right smack dab in the value area of the Kendra Miller, Roshan Johnson, Zach Evans area. And I think you could probably let's see what else is available, and then we
All
can
right. Well,
maybe
let's look
circle
at
back.
some of the other spots that we know the Cowboys are looking at. Cornerback, Tyreek Stevenson from Miami. We know the Cowboys have some interest there. A couple other guys, including Corey Trice, Darius Rush, DJ Turner, who I know a lot of people have. I don't think he necessarily fits the Cowboys. Clark Phillips.
Yeah, Jalen Jones used to be, if I'm not mistaken, the #1 recruit that came out of Texas, and I don't know,
Yep.
4 or 5 years ago. So these are all guys. I mean, Tyreek Stevens, I think, is the name that sticks out for me in the cornerback list for
All right,
sure.
let's go to a different position. Let's go to linebacker
Yeah.
really quickly. Linebackers pretty picked over. Dorian Williams, DeMarvin Overshown, the top linebackers there. If you want to look at edge rusher, Thule from USC.
He's a guy that they have looked into. I think that he's kind of a tweener type a little bit, but I would see him more as a 3 technique, I think.
Okay. And I would agree. If we go to wide receiver, you've got Tank Dell, you've got Michael Wilson. I think both those guys are going to go a little bit later. We've got A.T. Perry and Cedric Tillman and Marvin Mims and Tyler Scott available.
I mean, yeah, it's like I said, these are all guys that I'm interested in, just not at 58, and that is the issue here, right? Is that I like several of these guys. It's just I don't know if I love them where we're picking. I think to me, I mean, Tank Dell or Tyreek Stevenson is kind of the best option. But I also could be convinced that you could. I honestly think maybe you take Stevens. I'm sorry, is it Stevenson?
Tyreek Stevenson.
Yeah, I kind of think you take Stevenson and then see what wide receiver falls to you in your next pick, or running back or wide receiver, depending on where the value is.
I think I like Cedric Tillman maybe a little bit more than you do. I think I would be okay with him at 58. But I love Tyreek Stevenson. I think that's somebody who can play in the slot, can play outside, even played a little bit of safety for Miami. This feels like a very much a Cowboys pick at 58.
My thing with Tillman is that if I can't, if I don't take Stevenson here, I don't know that I love the corners on the next round. And if I don't take Tillman here, I feel like I can take what's his name, A.T. The North Carolina. Yep. A.T. Perry, who I think is a very similar player and very similarly skilled.
All right, so let's take Tyreek Stevenson here. Now the Cowboys still have we got 2 picks coming here in just a second in the 3rd round. We will get to those next. All right, Landon, we are back here in the 3rd round. A lot of our guys coming off the board: Tyler Scott, Andre Carter, Marvin Mims, Gervin Dexter, guy that we talked about on yesterday's podcast. Here we are in the 3rd round. Tank Dell still available, who we considered maybe in round 2. Michael Wilson, A.T. Perry still there. So if you want to draft a receiver, it actually came out pretty well. Let's look at running backs, because that's another position we were talking about. Dwayne McBride, Tank Bigsby, Kendre Miller, Tajay Spears, Deuce Vaughn, Roshan Johnson, Zach Evans. A lot of running backs still available on the board.
Yeah, I'm thinking we take a wide receiver here, right? Because I think if you look at that list, there's 3 guys we like, or at least that I like. I think the running back list, I mean, I'm comfortable with
a lot of those
5
guys.
or 6 of those guys. Yeah. So, and including Dwayne McBride, who is a guy that we haven't talked a ton about. I don't know if the Cowboys have interest there, but man, he may be my favorite running back with the football in his hands.
I agree.
He's fun to watch when he runs the football. But I would say we should look at the wide receivers and maybe potentially go with someone like Tank Dell's still there if you want him.
Tank Dell, A.T. Perry are the 2 names that probably jump out to me. We like Michael Wilson. We think the Cowboys like Michael Wilson. I think PFF is a little high on Michael Wilson. I don't see him going in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I see him more as a 4th rounder.
So do I. Yep.
I think A.T. Perry is a little bit more appealing to me. I don't know. I think it's probably a coin toss. I think Tank Dell might be a better prospect, but I think A.T. Perry fits the more replaceable wide receiver of the group that the Cowboys have, right? Like, I mean, because I think A.T. Perry to me would be more of an X.
Yes, I agree.
He's more of the X receiver body type, and I think that's where his game is. Dell is going to be more of the kind of obviously diminutive Z slot type.
Let me ask you this: Does
Yeah.
drafting Jalen Tolbert last year at all affect how you draft the receiver here?
It shouldn't. But if it did, I would say that we should take Tank Dell.
That's what I was thinking. The other thing is we do know the Cowboys have shown interest in Tank Dell, and I think they could carve out a role for him if they at 80, it's whatever. Like I think if you're drafting him at 58, it's a little rich just because you have to manufacture him touches. But in the third round here at 80, why not?
Yeah, I mean he's worth manufacturing touches for, and I think as opposed to what you have in house with your kind of diminutive receivers, you got a guy who's a kick returner who you feel like you can give the ball to maybe on some sweeps, but you don't feel comfortable having him run routes. I think with Tank Dell, you've got a guy who can be actually a true receiver as well as being the kind of gadget player that you really didn't get a chance to kind of avail yourself of last year. So I certainly have no problem with taking Tank Dell here.
All right, so this is the extra pick that we gained in the trade down. Let's go ahead and grab them. It's fun.
Yep, that's good.
All right. So the Cowboys going to be back on the clock here in about 9 picks. A lot of the same guys going off the board. We've seen A.T. Perry, Darius Rush, Jordan Battle, Michael Wilson off the board. Do you want to look at running backs here to see if you can grab your running back?
Yeah, I mean, look, running back is still going strong. So honestly, you might even be able to push it one more round if you think, right? Because I'm still cool with if we needed to. Zach Evans in the 4th round is that's doable for me. I like a lot of those guys. So.
At the same time, you might not just want to wait. Like if you think one of these guys is you could pair with Tony Pollard right away, you draft.
If you feel strongly about Kendre Miller, I think this is probably where you would have to take him. Let's see what else is available, because if there isn't anything else that's like blinking at me, then maybe you just. Yeah, I mean, you could take a defensive tackle because this is kind of where you're seeing guys like the Texas guys are stacked and
I'll pull those guys up. I'll read through the names. Kobe Turner, Pickens, Coburn, Byron Young.
Yeah. Toval's a little bit later, some of those guys. I mean, if you wanted to get a defensive tackle, now is probably the time to do it. But I don't know that it's so much more. I don't know that supersedes your desire to take a good running back. So I if it's me, I probably would look at Kendre Miller. I don't know if anyone else off that list.
Do you like Miller better than Evans?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah,
we'll say that next week.
But I mean, if you're asking me, I like Evans in the 4th round more than I like Miller at this pick.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense.
Gotcha. I like Evans better.
Okay.
In general.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. But that's fine.
He's too upright. We'll talk about him. We have a whole show planned for some of these down roster running backs. So we'll get into that.
This is the benefit though of doing one slight trade back, is you just don't feel pressured to do anything right. You got your receiver, you drafted your running back, you got your guard, you got your corner. And then we're now at pick 129, and our guy Kobe Turner still there from Wake Forest.
Yeah, and Corey Trice is also there. Yeah. And I like Juice Scruggs a lot.
Sure.
So yeah, I kind of like where we ended up. We saw this. You see that Zach Evans ended up making it to the 4th round. So if you wanted to kind of employ that method of taking somebody in the 3rd round, honestly, I don't know what it would have mattered, because we probably would have ended up taking someone like. The Wake Forest defensive tackle anyway. So it probably worked out 6-1, half dozen the other, really. Another guy I'm seeing here, Marty Mapu.
I was just going to say, for people that are watching on YouTube, you get some extra little nuggets, because we're just kind of like circling guys that we know the Cowboys like a lot.
Yeah.
He is one of them.
But not as a safety, I don't think.
No,
I think they like him as a linebacker, because I mean he's very similar. Yeah, if you look at it, he has very similar kind of numbers to a Tyler Coyle, who they ended up kind of making a full-time safety. So I wouldn't be surprised if Marte Mapu is a guy that they draft as a potential down the line replacement for one of the safeties, or that kind of hybrid safety linebacker that Curse plays.
Let's take Kobe Turner here and just finish out the draft. But
let's do it.
Gotta say, Landon, I like this one slight trade back from 26 to 32. I like it a lot. We ended up with Steve Avila, the guard from TCU, Tyreek Stevenson, a corner / nickel corner from Miami, Tank Dell, wide receiver from Houston, Kendre Miller, running back from TCU, and then Kobe Turner from Wake Forest. It's a pretty solid little haul there.
I got two brother-in-laws who went to TCU that are going to be very thrilled with this draft if it turns out this way. So yeah, this is I really agree. I think a slight trade back. That's the brilliance of where you are and your needs right now. Is Steve Avila is a guy that provides a nice floor, and having him in that kind of range gives you options that you feel like if this is the top guy we walk away with, and he's our plug-in left guard starter, it gives us the options to kind of move around a little bit, get some more picks, recoup some of what we've lost. In fact, getting better than what they lost, and adding some players who I think, those top 4 players, maybe all of them can give you contributions on this team, probably right away.
And I think this is a very conservative mock in the sense that we weren't there weren't players that fell egregiously here to the Cowboys that we are grabbing. Like, this feels very much like the floor that you would get in a trade down. Like, you get Avila at 32, you get Stevenson at 58, you get Tank Dell at 80. Like, though Kendre Miller is even maybe a little bit of a reach at pick 90, but
sure.
If this is the way that it played out, I think Cowboy fans would be very happy.
Yeah, in the sense that sometimes you get on these mock draft simulators and they go nuts, right? And it doesn't seem very realistic. This seemed very realistic value for all those players and all those picks. Like you mentioned, maybe even a slight reach for some of them, but that's part of what you do in the draft, right? Is you're trying to get the best match of value versus need at each pick. And I think that this one was at least very realistic view as to what could happen for the Cowboys on Thursday and Friday night.
All right, that is it for today's show. Thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every day. Now make your second listen to Locked On NFL Scouting Show with the Draft Dudes. From free agency to the draft, salary cap management, and more. Join NFL experts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino as they take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday. Find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for checking out our show. Please go to YouTube. A little easier to see the simulator up there and kind of follow along. So go check that out. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we'll see you guys next time.